I refused to sign my neighbor's HOA campaign form. Soon after, anonymous complaints filed against me accused me of harassment, property neglect, and noise violations. I asked her if she was involved. She said, "The neighborhood knows who doesn't belong." But when I attended the next HOA meeting, I was handed a folder containing documents with my signature forged on. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to get dragged into neighborhood politics. I really didn't. After my wife died from breast cancer, I sold our home in Birmingham and moved to Brentwood, Tennessee. I picked this place because it seemed quiet and put together. Safe. A good spot for a man in his 50s trying to mind his business and start over. That's all I wanted, to be left alone. The house I bought was modest. 2-story brick, old maple tree out front. Needed a little paint, but solid bones. My first few months here were uneventful. Just me, my job, I work remote in IT. And the occasional small talk with neighbors when I walked to check the mail. Nothing deep. That changed about 6 weeks ago. Denise Larrabee. My neighbor across the street. If you've ever lived in a suburban neighborhood with an HOA, you probably already know the type. Early 50s, always wearing pastel workout clothes even though she never breaks a sweat. Overly friendly but dead in the eyes. Her little fluffy dog wears rhinestone collars. She chairs just about every committee and walks around like she owns the damn street. One afternoon, she came knocking with a clipboard. "Hi, Rick," she said, smiling wide like she was running for mayor. "I'm putting together support for my campaign for HOA president. Just trying to get signatures from neighbors so we can show a united front." I asked her what she planned to do if she got elected. She gave me the typical talking points. Something about improving community standards and tighter enforcement of HOA policies. I asked, "Like what exactly?" She gave this forced laugh and said, "Well, some homes could use better upkeep. And there've been some noise issues lately. Nothing crazy, but leadership can help clean things up." I told her respectfully that I wasn't comfortable signing anything without more information. Her smile twitched. "Oh. Well, that's disappointing. I just think unity is important. People need to feel like they belong, you know?" I shrugged. "I'm sure they do." She walked off. I didn't think much of it after that. Until the letters started showing up. Exactly 10 days later, I got a large envelope in the mail with the HOA logo on it. Inside were 3 formal complaints, one accusing me of harassing a female neighbor by loitering on her property and using inappropriate language. Another accusing me of noise violations after 9 p.m. and disturbing mechanical sounds. The last claiming I had neglected my yard, siding, peeling trim, overgrown grass, and dead shrubs. I stared at the paper like it was a prank. I don't host people. I don't have guests. I don't drink, don't blast music, and I mow every Saturday morning like clockwork. The peeling paint they referenced was on a shed I hadn't even touched yet because I was waiting for spring. I emailed the HOA board and asked to speak to someone. The woman who replied, Jean, told me the complaints were anonymous but had been submitted in good faith. She said I had 30 days to address the issues or face fines. I started keeping records right then. Daily yard photos. Ring camera turned on and set to capture motion 24/7. I wrote down every time I walked outside, every sound I heard on the street. A week later, I got a $150 fine in the mail for ongoing noise disturbances. I called Jean. Asked what evidence they had. She told me it would be reviewed in the next HOA board session, but that several neighbors had expressed concern. I asked who? She wouldn't say. Then I made my first real mistake. I asked Denise. She was walking her dog, fake smiling as always. I said, Hey, can I ask you something? I've been getting complaints. Stuff I know I didn't do. I'm not accusing you, but you haven't heard anything, have you? She blinked, then smiled like I was a toddler. Oh, Rick. This is what happens when people don't fit in. The neighborhood knows who belongs and who doesn't. She tugged her dog's leash and walked off. I stood there on the sidewalk stunned. She didn't even try to deny it. I started going door to door. Quietly. Respectfully. My next-door neighbor Maria, widow, mid-60s, had been fined last year for having unauthorized lawn decorations. Her garden gnome, of all things. I asked if I could see the paperwork. She showed me. The signature on the complaint looked familiar. The handwriting was very similar to what I'd seen on mine. Then I talked to Travis, a single dad 2 doors down. His complaint said he was leaving trash in his driveway. It was tools. He's a mechanic. He also had a complaint signed R. Cantrell. My name. I never filed that. I hadn't even spoken to Travis more than once. I told him that. He looked pissed. I figured it was BS. Didn't think to ask. That's when I realized Denise wasn't just targeting me. She was weaponizing the system. And she was using my name to do it. At the next HOA board meeting, I showed up for the first time. When I walked in, Denise was there, sitting at the center like a damn queen bee. Her little friends sat next to her, Wendy and Sandra, I think. Jean from the board handed me a manila folder. These are the documents you requested. Inside were 8 documents. Complaint forms, noise violation notices, endorsement slips. One stood out. It was a signed form from me, endorsing Denise's HOA campaign. I believe Denise Larrabee is the best choice for HOA president. She will make our neighborhood safer, cleaner, and more united. Signed Rick Cantrell. Except I never signed that. My chest tightened. The signature looked close. Close enough that someone not paying attention wouldn't question it. But it wasn't mine. I flipped through the rest. Complaints, violation forms, reports. Some were filed by me. Some against me. But the handwriting matched. And not one of them was real. Now I knew. Someone was forging my signature. And if I didn't do something, it was only going to get worse. So I called in a favor. A friend from my army days, Lou, now a PI based out of Franklin. I told him I needed to quietly look into someone, Denise Larrabee. He didn't ask many questions. 3 days later, Lou called. "You're not gonna believe this," he said. "She pulled the same crap in her old neighborhood in Murfreesboro. Ran for HOA, caused a ton of drama, then moved right after a legal dispute. Got sued, settled before trial. Allegations of forged community votes. He even dug up a PDF of the lawsuit. Same language, same MO. That was all I needed. I hired a handwriting expert in Nashville, Kemp. He compared the signed docs to real forms I'd filled out with the DMV and my mortgage. He confirmed it forged. Now I had everything. Now that I had the proof. Handwriting analysis, Denise's past legal trouble, and signed statements from neighbors. I had to be smart about how I used it. I didn't want to just call her out and get brushed off. I needed to destroy her credibility from the inside. So I waited. First, I went to the neighbors she'd burned before, Travis, Maria, even a quiet couple named Matt and Sophia who'd been fined over a backyard fence that violated height codes. They'd filed an appeal that mysteriously vanished before the board ever saw it. Sounded familiar. I showed each of them what I had, copies of my forged signature, the lawsuit from her old HOA, and Kemp's report. I didn't push them to act. I just told them the truth. Every single one of them agreed, she needed to be stopped. Then I called Jean from the HOA board and asked for a private meeting. She seemed cautious at first, probably thought I was just another cranky homeowner with a grudge. But when I handed her the binder with the evidence, her face changed. This is serious," she said, flipping through the pages. "Rick, if what you're saying is true, and if she forged these, that's criminal." I didn't say anything. Just let the silence speak. I left that meeting with one goal: make sure Denise never saw it coming. I knew Denise would find out eventually, but I didn't realize how fast. The next morning, I woke up to find my trash cans overturned, bags ripped open, coffee grounds and banana peels scattered across the driveway. At first, I thought it was raccoons. Then I saw the note. A single sheet of paper taped to my garage door. Watch yourself. No signature. No handwriting to trace. Just those 2 words printed in block caps. I called Lou. She knows, I said. He was quiet for a second. Then he said, You ready to move this up a notch? I didn't know this part was coming. Lou had done more digging. Denise's husband, Greg, wasn't really around. I'd only seen him a few times since moving in. Turns out, he worked for a logistics firm in Chicago and came home maybe 1 weekend a month. But Lou found something else. Denise was living under a different last name during her time in Murfreesboro. Back then, she was Denise Harrow. Changed it back to her maiden name after that lawsuit. Why? Probably to scrub her search results. Reinvent herself. I gave this info to Jean, and she passed it to the HOA board's attorney. Now they were involved. The attorney told me they were preparing to call a special vote to suspend Denise's privileges. But they needed one more thing, a direct link between Denise and the forged documents. That's when I had an idea. I created a fake complaint. Typed it up in Word, complaining about a neighbor who played aggressive music and left toys on the lawn. I printed it and left it in my mailbox, just peeking out, looking like it was ready to be picked up. I also left my side gate unlocked, and a copy machine box out on my porch, marked Old Forms, shred later. Then I waited. I knew Denise couldn't help herself. 2 nights later, my Ring camera caught her. 2:14 a.m. She walked up in a hoodie, pulled the paper from my mailbox, took photos of it, then walked around back through the side gate. She didn't go in, but she looked through the box on my porch and took one paper. I had her on video. Her face. Her hands. Her phone. Everything. That was the final piece. I burned it to a flash drive, took it to Jean, and watched her face go pale. This is done, she said. She's finished. The next HOA meeting was unlike any before. Jean called an emergency session. Flyers went out. Neighbors whispered. You could feel the tension in the air like a storm was about to roll through. I showed up early. Sat in the back. Watched people trickle in. Maria and Travis were there. So were Matt and Sophia. Denise came in 20 minutes late, wearing a tailored blue suit like she was about to give a TED Talk. Her smile looked glued in place. She didn't know yet. She had no idea how far gone she already was. Jean called the meeting to order. Before we go into old business, she said, we need to address a serious matter. People shifted in their seats. Denise crossed her legs and adjusted her scarf. Jean took out a folder and laid it on the table. In the past several weeks, multiple complaints have been filed. About a pattern of misconduct. About forged documents. About fraud. The board has investigated these allegations in partnership with legal counsel. And what we found, she paused, is enough to take immediate action. Then she hit play on a projector screen. The video started. Grainy night footage from my Ring camera. Denise. Hoodie. Mailbox. Porch. Papers. Then, Jean laid out everything, handwriting analysis proving my signature was forged on multiple documents. Testimonies from neighbors whose complaints had mysteriously disappeared or were submitted with false names. Evidence that Denise had a legal history under the name Denise Harrow, tied to HOA fraud in Murfreesboro. My video showing her trespassing on my property to snoop for documents. And finally, bank records, yes, bank records. Pulled via subpoena, showing she'd personally received payouts from a landscaping company the HOA had just happened to switch to this past spring. That contract had been approved with fake votes she claimed were collected door to door. It was like watching a dam burst in slow motion. Denise stood up. This is ridiculous. You can't prove any of this. This is a smear campaign by people who never liked me. But her voice was cracking. Her hands were shaking. Then Jean dropped the final hammer. We've already turned all findings over to the Davidson County DA. Charges include fraud, identity theft, forgery, criminal trespassing, and falsifying business records. The room went dead silent. Denise's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Then Greg, her absentee husband, stood up from the corner. He had come into town for the meeting, which I hadn't expected. He looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. He said nothing. Just picked up his coat and walked out. Right there. In front of everyone. She tried to follow him, but someone from the board told her to sit down. 2 deputies from the sheriff's department entered the room 5 minutes later and walked her out in cuffs. She didn't speak. Didn't cry. Just stared at the floor. That should have been enough. But the fallout went deeper than I imagined. It turned out Denise hadn't just forged my name, she'd forged dozens of complaints across the past year. Some neighbors had paid thousands in fines. Others had been denied HOA improvement grants based on false infractions she wrote up herself. The HOA board went under full audit. 3 other members, Sandra, Wendy, and one newer guy named Keith, were suspended pending investigation. They claimed they didn't know what she was doing, but email records showed they'd signed off on some of her forged vote counts and pre-written complaint forms without reviewing them. The HOA had to refund over $19,000 in fines. The landscaping company's contract was cancelled, and the HOA was forced to open board elections immediately. Travis was nominated. So was Maria. They both won. I didn't run. I didn't want power. I just wanted peace. A month later, Denise pled guilty to 4 counts of fraud and 1 of forgery. The court let her take a deal in exchange for full restitution and no trial. She was sentenced to 2 years in prison and ordered to pay over $40,000 back to the HOA and affected homeowners. Greg filed for divorce. Sold the house. Moved out within 2 weeks. The new family who bought it. Young couple with 2 kids. Kind people. They brought cookies when they moved in. As for me, I'm still here. Still in the same house. Same tree. Same porch. But it's quieter now. Sometimes people wave when I walk down the street, and now they mean it. I didn't want revenge when this started. I just wanted to be left alone. But sometimes, when someone pushes too hard, crosses too many lines, and thinks they're too clever to get caught, it's not just about getting even. It's about showing everyone else what happens when you try to ruin a man's life with lies. And that's exactly what I did.